Hi, this is Scott Garibay, and today I'm going to be talking about the Fantasy Flight Games Star Wars role-playing game books. So this is Star Wars Edge of the Empire role-playing game. All right, you can see the core rule book, right? And that was the first of the Star Wars Fantasy Flight games. This is Star Wars Age of Rebellion core rule book. Okay, and then finally, and this is why we're talking today, is Star Wars Force and Destiny role-playing game. All right. Now, I've been waiting for this book for about 3 or 4 years, me and many other people. Right. This is a really exciting book. It is a tabletop role-playing game for probably the most valuable intellectual property in the world, bar none. Star Wars was sold for $4 billion by George Lucas to Walt Disney. And this is a tabletop role-playing game that deals with that intellectual property. And this is fascinating to me because it really is it's a meta topic, right? So, and really what I'm going to be talking about today is really the industry of tabletop role-playing games and what Fantasy Flight Games has accomplished. This book is incredibly important, right? So, West End Games held the Star Wars role-playing game licensed property, and then also Wizards of the Coast held it. And Wizards of the Coast let it lapse, which is crazy. Why would you let the Star Wars role-playing game property lapse, right? So, what's happening is role-playing games make dirt. They don't make much money at all, right? But they are a really interesting topic because role-playing games now are really, really super selecting for a fantastic, rich, vibrant consumer base, right? So basically, tabletop role-playing games are all paper. You have some PDFs coming out, of course, but the really exciting products, the ones that excite the community, they're paper. They're paper-based products, and paper is dying, right? So, but there's so much that we can learn from this. So basically, this is saying, if you're going to do a paper-based product today, you are going to pay crap tons of money to get the best visual artists you can get. You're going to make every single page full color, and you are not going to release it as a PDF, right? And so I'm almost positive these are not available as PDFs. The same goes with Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition, right? So I think that's really important, right? So, and the reason why is it's street cred, right? So the reality is, most of the people who are playing tabletop role-playing games, teenagers are turning away from them. They're generally playing video games. And so what you have is generally 40, 50-year-old males who are the core base, who are buying these in the largest numbers, have a lot of disposable income, and they buy a lot of these games, right? And so you really need, and Fantasy Flight Games, the reason why I'm talking about this is they are incredibly dialed into this issue. They own a great property, and they are incredibly careful about the properties they own. They did Warhammer 40K, and they have Lord of the Rings properties, and they have these properties that they're going to make for games, right? So one of the things I love about this book is you can see it, also, that's the Disney logo right there. This is the first time this has ever happened. There's never been a tabletop role-playing game with the Disney logo directly on it, right? And so, but this is the really important part. These are custom dice. This is an advertisement for custom dice. And so Fantasy Flight is saying, hey, if you have Yoda, who's a $1 billion intellectual property character, you'd better not just be slapping it down and letting people pay, use the same old D20 that they've been using for a while. You need to create streams of revenue to support this incredibly important book, right? Because guys like me love these games, right? Now I'm very blessed to have disposable income, and a lot of guys who buy these games like me are very blessed to have disposable income, right? And to buy these games, but not in the numbers that Disney is going to care about. These are niche products. But so if they're not going to bring money to, if they're not going to bring boatloads of cash to the table, what do they bring, right? And what they bring is street cred, right? So the geek world is the geek world, and geek chic is a thing now. The culture is changing. Things that would get you beat up in high school before are now becoming cool, You know, so hipsters are on the rise, all this stuff. And tabletop role-playing games have the most street cred when it comes to geekiness, right? So basically, you know, LARP's got a stink on it. Most people don't like to LARP. It's very hard to LARP. There's a huge barrier to market to LARPing. But smart intellectuals with a lot of money, with a good amount of money, like these games, and they're connected to other products that Disney does care about, right? So I'll tell you right now, I guarantee there is a Star Wars, Edge of the Empire, Age of the Rebellion, Force and Destiny, these Fantasy Flight tabletop role-playing games, they are on a license, a limited license for a few number of years with, you know, making these tabletop role-playing games. And so Fantasy Flight Games is going to do one thing. They're going to continue to make these games. They're going to make money from the dice. They're going to make money from dice bags. They're going to make that are branded with Star Wars symbols. I just bought a Mandalorian dice bag, right? Which is brilliant. Like if you can't they're doing exactly. And so I'm really fascinated with the business lessons that Fantasy Flight Games has learned, and I'm trying to recognize them and see what they're doing. So what they've learned is if you have an incredibly valuable licensed property, you've got to find other streams of revenue, right? So the custom dice in this game are an additional stream of revenue, and I am very much rooting for Fantasy Flight Games to keep this property, but it's to keep this licensed property. But it's going to be very challenging for them, right? When their license comes up, they're going to be able to say, "Hey, we made $500,000, $1 million, maybe $2-3 million." I highly doubt this product will make more than $2-3 million maximum, right? But the people that it affects, the people who play it, the energy and the buzz it gets on the internet, that is valuable to these properties, right? And so that is very, very valuable to Disney. That is valuable to Fantasy Flight Games. That is valuable to to the Star Wars projects within Disney, because these are all rubbing up against the multi-billion-dollar property, which is the movie. And the new movie, these books are the hot role-playing game that you can play right now. If you want to play the Star Wars role-playing game right now, you only have two choices. You can buy these 3 books at $60 a piece. $60 a piece. It's $180. I bought $45 worth of dice, 3 sets of dice to play this with a group of 5 players, and that was what you needed. So you're $220 in, right? $225 in to play this role-playing game. And so that's, that's a really interesting way to approach it. And so I just think that's really a fascinating concern that they have. So they're doing everything they can to scramble and keep this licensed property. And that means they're going to need to create streams of revenue. And here's the additional thing. We, as crusty old grognards, guys who like to buy these books, we like to whine a lot about role-playing games and how expensive they are, which to me has always been an absolutely ludicrous opinion, right? This book, I can run easily 3 campaigns. Each one of those campaigns would be 3, 5, 7 sessions. Each one of those sessions is going to be 2 to 4 hours. It's got to be like $1 easily, $1 an hour for entertainment, right? For 6 people at the table, 4 to 6 people at the table, easily $1 an hour. It's a quarter an hour, 25 cents an hour if you're counting the people who are playing. And where am I getting that number? A movie. Lots of people still go to the movies. I still go to the movies. That's a huge industry. People are paying $10 for 2 hours, so that's $5 an hour. Same thing with video games. Video games are coming down to 20, 30 hours of gameplay. For most, they're $60 a pop. That's $2 an hour, right? So this is an unbelievable deal when it comes, and you get the fun of reading it. So as far as entertainment value, these are the best in the business, right? And what we as fans need to do to keep this alive and to keep the Star Wars role-playing game property right here is stop whining about custom dice. This game has gotten a lot of flack for having custom dice. And so I'm just kind of, I'm talking about, what it takes to own a property. And why am I talking about that? Why am I talking about owning a property? The reason I'm talking about owning a high-end property is Marvel, right? So the Marvel role-playing game was recently done by Margaret Weissman, right? Margaret Weisman is a brilliant lady. She wrote a lot of the Dragonlance books, right? And she owned her own role-playing game company that held licensed property. Still does. They have the Serenity property. They had the Buffy property. They had the Marvel property, and they blew it. Blew it huge. They wrote hardback books. They're $50-$60 a piece, right down the line. It's what we expect, right? And they blew it. It was unintuitive, barely playable. You had to explain it 3 times to get anybody to understand it, except a high-end DM. DMs could get it, but the players were like, "What? What is this?" And I remember following the guys in the blogs that they did, and they just bent over backwards to explain what the heck this game was. And I think they realized, oh my gosh, this thing's unplayable. And it was kind of sad, and they lost it. 2 years in, Marvel said, "You're done, out, done, no more." And now there is no Marvel role-playing game available. You cannot buy one. And so I'm saying, hey, look at Fantasy Flight Games. What they did is incredible. Star Wars Edge of the Empire. Star Wars Age of Rebellion. Star Wars Force and Destiny, right? These books are fantastic, right? Just open the thing up anywhere. What? Look at that art. It's crazy. Beautiful. Full color. I open it any page. Full color. Gorgeous, right? This is top of the line content for tabletop role-playing games, right? Really brilliant, really beautiful material. So it's very exciting to me, right? And I want them to keep this, and I want them to angle and keep trying to do the impossible, because that's what it is. This shouldn't exist. A multi-billion-dollar company like Disney saying, hey, we're going to give thousands of smart intellectual people the right to tell stories in our world legally, right? That maybe they have a little bit of ownership on, right? Because it's your character, you made it up, right? That's nuts, right? So we should be enjoying this like crazy while we can. We should pray that it gets through their next contract round, right? And also, I think we should be really happy about the juice these games still have, right? And I think when you're in Disney, they have a lot of people who are in IT. They have a lot of there's a lot of artists there. I think they just like the idea of having a role playing game around, because economically it makes no sense that these books exist, especially now that Disney owns Star Wars, right? One of the other things that's really fascinating about these is just how these books got to where they were, right? Think about what they did and what these really are, right? This has never, ever been done before in the history of role-playing games. These books are taking the Star Wars world and cutting it up into not a core rule book and 3 splat books that are like, oh, here's this is Smugglers and Bounty Hunters. This is Princesses and Pilots. You can see it right on the cover. This is the whole book, nothing but Jedi. Jedi, right? Light and dark Jedi, right? They took the entire Star Wars world and cut it up into 3 separate books. But here's the thing. Fully playable within itself. 400 pages long. Fully playable. Fully playable within itself. 400 pages long. Fully playable within itself. 400 pages long. That's important. Never been done before. Fantasy Flight Games, to keep this property, they watched Margaret Weisman flush $1 billion intellectual property down the drain and said, the heck if we will, we are going to hustle and we are going to keep this title. And they're doing everything they can to do the impossible, to keep a high-end, multi-billion-dollar industry interested in the dregs. Like, role-playing games are so small, they are a niche market, right? And so they're saying our street cred is worth it to keep this existent, right? The other thing that's really fascinating about each of these books, 150 pages of each book is duplication of the next book. And so they're saying, hey, there's people out there who want to just play Smugglers and Bounty Hunters. That's a whole campaign in itself. There's people who want to play just Princesses and Pilots. That's a whole campaign in itself. There's people who want to just play Light and Dark Side Jedi. That's a whole campaign in itself. It is absolutely brilliant the way they approach this, right? There's a lot of lessons to be learned for everybody out there who's building games and building role-playing game content. These guys are really on their game. They really know what they're doing. And, And again, I read the reviews, and people are buying these books, and many people are like, "Whoa, this is amazing!" And then other people are just stuck in their old grognard ways, saying, "Oh, I want to be able to play with my old dice. I got to buy new dice." And the reason why is if you don't buy new dice for this, this goes away. It doesn't. Period. Done. Right? You don't have multiple streams of revenue. This is exactly like Margaret Weissman's Marvel game, and it will be gone. Right? So I think it's really important that we're blessed to have these games. If you don't own these games, get them, because I think there's a good chance they will not get past the next contract renewal. Get them while you can. The old D20s, $200 for the core rulebook. All the games are going up. KOTOR, I hate to even look. It's probably $150, right? Right? And those are the old square books, right? All these are going to go up. So one, if you don't have them, get them. Two, if you're out there and you're saying, I don't want to get custom dice, get over it, right? Get on board, because we want the hobby to grow, right? And then also realize, do the math. When you are buying these books, it's 25 cents an hour for entertainment. Entertainment, which in my opinion beats movies, beats video games. It's limitless. It's only limited by your game master. And if you're blessed to have a good game master, that's an incredible value. Even if you don't have a great DM, it's still cool to be a bounty hunter and shoot people, or be a Jedi and chop somebody's arm off. So these are really special books, and I just wanted to kind of call it to light, tell you, and just thoroughly applaud Fantasy Flight Games for what they're doing. And also just, kind of bring people's attention to it, because I don't think people realize these aren't just another role-playing game books. These are special. This is innovation in the field at a level that's never, ever been seen. And so it's just kind of exciting, and I just wanted to talk about it. And thanks for watching. Take care, everybody.